Hi guys, happy December 2023. This is a Locality Boa basic video about regurgitations in True Red Tail Boas. And it's basically covering my experience with the infamous soft stomachs of these True Red Tail Boas and my experiences and kind of what I think you guys need to know about it. But the first thing I want to do is plug another breeder's page on YouTube. It's Ancient Reproductions, Bob Guerriere. He is really a leader in the reptile industry, especially with with Argentine boas, BCOs. I can't believe he doesn't get more subscribers and views than he does. He's really given away a lot of nuggets of information. They're buried deep in these long videos, but if you care about boas and you're not watching him, you're doing a disservice. So I'm going to put a link to his page in the description, but go ahead and give Bob some love because he's really giving it back to the community right now. All right, so on the subject of regurgitations in True Red Tail Boas, boa constrictor constrictor, they have this reputation for being soft stomach, regurgitating, vomiting, puking, fragile little things that spiral and die. And what I'll tell you about that is sort of true. And by that, what I mean is most keepers, myself included, we're really born with a silver spoon in our mouth, in that we have the available knowledge on how to keep these animals readily available to us, and also we have a readily available supply of captive bred animals. And with healthy established animals, the incidences of regurgitations under proper care are pretty low, but they do happen, and I would say that BCCs have more fragile stomachs than the other boas that I keep in this room. If I was to give you, to quantify the animals and how commonly regurgitations occur in a BCC, if I think about all the BCC in my room and that have been in my collections, that I've bred in things, and the ones that I know have regurgitated, it's somewhere between 5 and 10% of these animals will have a regurgitation at some point in their life. All the animals that I know that have had a regurgitation are still living, and that's years after, so that is a positive thing, and I'll tell you that it can be recovered. But that is specifically talking about an established, healthy animal under proper care. And so that excludes your imports, that excludes your distressed animals, it excludes an animal that you're refusing to give the proper care to, because those will do poorly, more poorly than an animal under this care. So what's the regurgitation going to look like if you get it? It's really kind of this unfortunate thing. It's going to look like a partially digested feeder prey. It's going to probably, usually say you fed a white mouse, it's going to be a bagged out, slimy, deflated, basically skin of a mouse or a rat or whatever you put in there. It's going to be slimy. If it is brown, it's only going to be a little bit brown at the tip as it's working its way through digestion, but it's not brown. Unless it's kind of oxidized and dry, but when they're fresh, they're kind of this white, slimy, pale, grayish. They smell bad, somewhere between vomit and rotting meat, and that's the sign that you have a regurgitation. And what you should do in that point, at that point, is first double check your husbandry. Have the humility to go through top to bottom and make sure that your parameters are right. If you don't allow your snake to get up into the upper 80s, it might not be able to digest properly. Maybe that heat mat in your setup was adequate in the summer when you got your snake, but now it's 6 months later and that room, instead of being upper 70s, is lower 60s, and now that heat pad is not enough heat for that animal to cook its prey. Start to question those. Really just go back down to basics with your husbandry. I'd like to make the point, especially with heat, because I think that's the most important parameter, is that heat is different than proper temperatures. And what I was kind of alluding to with that heat mat in a cold room is you have a heat mat that's set at 92, so the floor is 92 in a cage, but now that room is 62 and the ambient temperature in that cage is only 70, and that heat mat only is 20 watts, you have the right temperature on that spot, but you don't have enough heat to provide that animal what it needs, because it needs a deep, thorough, penetrating therms to actually raise the body temperature of something like this, get it up to where the prey is cooking and digest. So make sure that you're giving them adequate heat. Make sure that your heaters haven't failed. The other thing, make sure you're not overheating. That's another reason for them to puke. But once you have a regurg, that's a sign to mark the date in your calendar, because it's an important thing to know going forward and remember. And then I would cease all feeding for at least 4 weeks. And then when you go back, I would go something that is probably 2 sizes smaller. So if you were feeding a large mouse, I would be going to a small mouse. This snake is maybe a small rat feeder. I would be going to a medium mouse, large mouse, something like that, at very spaced out intervals. Don't rush to get back feeding. People are like, I don't know why people do this, but they think 2 weeks is enough if you have a regurg. It's not. They have torn up their stomach in the process. Something went poorly. 2 weeks is really not enough time to get their stomach back to baseline, and it's also not enough time for you to really stabilize your care parameters if that was an issue. So wait a month, feed them something very small, wait 2 weeks, feed them something very small again, and then slowly taper yourself back up. I will tell you that any regurgitation is going to set you back about 6 months in growth on one of these snakes. Best case scenario, because you are going to be fasting them for a little bit and then giving them stuff that's so small you're not even giving them the calories to grow. You're just almost idle feeding them or maintaining them and then trying to get their GI tract back online. And it's going to be 6 months at least before you can feel really good rolling them on. The other thing I will tell you is that once an animal has regurgitated, I would consider that animal a little softer stomached in general, and that's just an acknowledgement that not every animal has the same solid stomach. There are people that can eat anything from the gas station and be fine, and there are people that just can't eat anything other than plain rice and whatever. So stomachs are different for individuals. And for example, on this female, she's got 2 regurgs in her history. They both happened between 12 and 18 months, and they were just because I fed too large of an item. Every time I've had a regurg, it's been when I've been like, I think that they can eat something this big. So that's the piece where my keeper error goes in. I have to acknowledge with humility, my own errors here, which is that I'm not feeding them something crazy. It's just that I'm feeding a group of animals and they're all getting bumped up in size. And say I had 5, I'll give you an example. I had 5 of these litter mates and they are all going from large to extra large mice. I fed 5 of them, 4 of them did fine, she did poorly. She regurgitated and then she had a second regurg within that couple month period. So the point being is that I think it's temperature related, it's feeder size related, and it's sensitive stomachs in certain individuals related. So best advice, feed them small. Nowadays, if I think that I'm ready to move my animals up, I keep them on that smaller prey item for another 3 to 4 weeks. Or 3 to 4 months rather, just to make sure, and it just seems to avoid those. But if you do have a regurg, you can recover from them, assuming that your animal is baseline healthy, assuming that your husbandry is proper, and assuming that you do take that 4 weeks off and then really taper them back up. So that's just what I'd tell you, and I would tell you that it is a feature that you need to be concerned about, and if a female has, or if an individual has done it once, they're going to do it again. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put these 2 snakes side by side to you. These are litter mates. They're kind of cool how different they are. But I'm going to show you the difference in growth rates in this female who has regurgitated on me and this female who has not. So if you see, you do lose 6 months when they regurgitate. And that's just because you're having to baby them back. But also, this is because I consider her a more fragile stomached animal. And so when I'm feeding this group, say I have 5 small rats defrosted, she's always going to get the smaller rodent than the ones that haven't regurgitated, just because it's a matter of caution. So over time, both because she had that feeding fast and the setback from regurgitation, also because I'm feeding her a little more slowly, you are getting a reduction in size. So that's just what I'll tell you. Your regurgitations are husband related, feeder size related, and a healthy, well-established animal. And those are the things you need to be looking for. So that's what I put out there for you. Take care. Bye-bye.